This week, something big is happening in global manufacturing. Not just news, but big shifts that can quietly destroy margins or create massive opportunities. Semiconductors are becoming a geopolitical weapon. AI is no longer analyzing data, it's starting to run factories. Europe might literally run out of jet fuel in weeks. And supply chains, they are being rewritten again. If you are in manufacturing or planning to enter it, what I am about to show you is not just optional to understand, because these aren't isolated events, they are signals of where the entire industry is going. Let's break it down. If you are new here, this is the INDUSTRIQO, where we break down global manufacturing shifts and what they actually mean for operators. So here is what we are going to cover. We will go layer by layer. First we will see the macro shifts globally that had happened. Then we will see in different geographical reasons what had happened. Then sector wise we will see what in different in the manufacturing sectors what changes have occurred. Then we will analyze the demand trends, and finally what's happening inside the supply chain. And at every step I'll tell you exactly what it means for manufacturers and what you should do. So let's start with the first section, which is the macro section, in which we will see the global shifts. So let's start with the first story. So let's start with something that most manufacturers underestimate, but it controls everything, and that is semiconductors. This week, industrial leaders told the US government, your current policies are not enough. And this is a big statement. Let's see what had happened. The semiconductor industry calls for a stronger industrial policy. The semiconductor industry leaders urged the US government that they should adopt a more robust long-term industrial policy during a congressional hearing. They basically emphasized that expanding investments under the CHIPS Act and the Science Act, and they should strengthening the supply chains and coordinate the trade, R&D, and workforce policies, because the current policies are not enough to compete globally, especially against China. And why all these things happen? Because global competition is intensifying. Countries are racing to dominate semiconductor manufacturing, like China has heavily subsidized its chip industry, and US, Europe, India responding with their own policies. And moreover, supply chain vulnerabilities are exposed. If we see like COVID and chip shortages showed us that just over dependent on Asia, especially Taiwan, it's basically fragile the global supply chains, and government now want domestic resilience. And moreover, like AI boom is driving urgency. If we see that AI infrastructure like the data centers, GPUs, they basically needs massive chip supply, and semiconductor demand is expected to surge towards $1 trillion scale in this decade. And policy gaps and execution issues, because industry argues that the funding is very slow and regulations are fragmented and workforce shortages are remain unsolved. That's why they demanded for this industrial policy shift. And now we see what impacts, risk, and opportunities it has on you if you are planning to enter this or already in this space. Now, who is affected by all of this? Directly, the semiconductor manufacturers, equipment suppliers, and the government funding chip ecosystems are directly affected by this. And indirectly, the automotive companies, electronic manufacturers, aerospace and defense, and AI companies and cloud providers are indirectly affected by this. Immediate impact that you will see in short term, the governments are likely to increase the subsidies and accelerate CHIPS Act funding and expand the tax incentives so that new people can enter in this space. And export control will be tightened, especially the US China, and trade fragmentation will increase. And companies will diversify suppliers and shift towards the friend-shoring and near-shoring. And cost pressures will rise because localization is equal to higher cost versus the globalized supply chains. And in long term, you will see that the world will split into blocks like the US-led ecosystem, China-led ecosystem, and emerging ecosystems like the India, Europe. Now, globalization is basically converting to strategic localization. This is what countries are preferring. Now there will be a massive industry growth, which you will see that the market which is projected to reach $975 billion by 2026 and $1.4 trillion by 2034. This is a massive, huge opportunity if anyone is planning to enter this space. And you will see that technology sovereignty will become priority. Countries will now want domestic fabs, domestic design capability, control over critical tech, because this will be beneficial for them as well as for the country in the long run. And there are certain risks involved, like the over subsidization will lead to inefficiency, and trade wars and fragmentation will increase. You will see there will be a shortage in talent and overcapacity cycles. And there are certain opportunities which are forming due to this are there you will see a massive capex boom. New countries entering supply chain and supplier ecosystem will grow. So what should you do? So you should, if you are a manufacturer in this space, what you should do? Supply chain strategy, which is very critical, which you should do. Don't depend on one geography. Build multiple region supplier networks and identify critical chip dependencies and single point of failures and try to improve that. Then you should strategically position yourself. Ask yourself that are you dependent on advanced chips, or how vulnerable is your production? And moreover, you can do like operational moves like increase inventory buffers, or explore nearshoring or local sourcing, or you can invest in supply chain visibility tools. So this isn't about chips, it's about control, supply chains, and who dominates the manufacturing in next decades. And that pressure is exactly where the next shift is happening. Because while governments are fighting over chips, something else is happening inside factories. AI is no longer just analyzing data, it's starting to take actions. Now let's see what has happened. AI is basically moving from insights to action. That is, manufacturing is entering a new phase of AI adoption, from pilot projects and dashboard to real operational execution. AI is no longer just analyzing data, it is triggering actions, automating workflows, and moreover, making real-time decisions. Companies are embedding AI directly into their production, supply chains, and planning systems. So AI is becoming a part of daily operations, and it's not just a tool for insight. Now, why it is happening? Because there is a operational pressure is increasing, and manufacturers face supply chain disruptions, labor shortages, margin pressures. So AI becomes a necessity, not optional. And insights alone are not enough. And technological maturity, like AI can now trigger workflows, coordinate decisions, and execute actions in real time. And moreover, there's a data explosion from Industry 4.0. That's why this shift is happening. Now, what are the impacts, risks, and opportunities that you can see from this shift? So directly, the large manufacturers who are adopting AI, operational teams, and supply chain managers and IT and data teams are directly affected by this, and indirectly the SMEs who have the pressure to adopt AI or fall behind. And workforce, like less repetitive work, more decision focused roles, and AI and software vendors. And in short term, you will see that the companies are moving from testing AI to scaling AI, and the reduced downtime, because you can detect defects early, better forecasting, and reduced manual tasks. You will see there will be faster decision making. AI enables you to do real time monitoring and immediate responses, and productivity gains will begin, like reduced downtime, errors, and manual workload. And in long run, you will see that there will be a rise of action-driven factories, from reactive to predictive to autonomous. Industry moving towards the stage 3, which is autonomous stage. Now AI becomes the core infrastructures like electricity and ERP systems, and competitive gap will widens. Winners are basically the AI integrated manufacturers, and losers will be still using manual decision systems. There are some risk involved, like data quality issue, which will be the biggest issue, and integrating challenges, because integrating AI into the factories will be very hard. And moreover, there will be high implementation cost, especially for the SMEs. Now, the opportunity will be like you will see there will be massive efficiency gains expected to be around 10 to 30%, and reduced operational frictions and new competition mode will be AI execution speed will be the new competitive advantage. So what you should do? You should start with execution, not experimentation. Don't just build random AI palettes. Do solve real business problems, downtime, delays, forecasting errors like these. And you should focus on actionable AI. Ask, you should ask yourself whether where can AI take action automatically, auto schedule production, auto order inventory, or auto detect defects, and fix your data first. This is the most important part and the most critical part. You should integrate ERP, production system, supply chain data, and standardized data. Build strong data pipelines because data quality is directly will be your AI success. And scale what works, like pilot, measure ROI, then scale across different plants. So the shift isn't AI adoption anymore. It's whether your factory can act faster than your competitors. Most manufacturers see this shift but don't know how to exactly and actually implement it inside their operations. The gap between knowing and executing is where the most money is lost. If you are trying to close the gap in your own business, there is something in the description that might help. Now, let's zoom out how different regions are reacting to all of this. So first we see, let's start with India because something strategic just happened that most people will ignore. India and Austria just signed 15 agreements, and this is much bigger than it sounds. India and Austria basically signed 15 agreement MOUs across like defense and military cooperation, counter-terrorism, counter-terrorism, technological and R&D, trade and investment, and skill and education. These agreements were signed during the visit of Austrian Chancellor Christian Stocker to India, meeting PM Narendra Modi. And basically the key highlights of this were like joint working group on counter-terrorism will be formed, defense technological and training cooperation, collaboration in AI, quantum tech, material science, and space. So this marks the first Austrian Chancellor visit in 40 years, marking it strategically significant. It happened because India is strengthening ties with Europe. India is expanding beyond traditional partners. Australia is a strategic way to European industrial ecosystem, and moreover, defense and security alignment because of rising global tensions. So there will be a need for to counter terrorism cooperation, defense partnerships, and joint working group reflects shared security priorities. And moreover, the technological race, both countries want the joint R&D innovation partnerships, and so they are basically focusing on machine learning, quantum tech, and advanced materials. And moreover, their trade between both the countries have been rising strongly. And talent and skill collaboration, India is the talent hub and Austria is advanced manufacturing and engineering, so this will be a very beneficial deal for both of them. And the impact of risk and opportunities due to this will be like directly the defense manufacturers, tech companies, export import businesses, startup and R&D institutions will be directly affected by this, and indirectly the Indian manufacturers exporting to Europe, skilled workforce, students and professional and supply chain players will be indirectly impacted. And in short term, you will see there will be a boost in bilateral business activity and new collaboration opportunities, policy level coordination will begin, and startup ecosystem will be more activated. In long term, you will see that there will be a strong India-Europe manufacturing corridor and high-tech collaboration ecosystem and defense industrial growth, and moreover the tech mobility, talent mobility, and skill upgrade. There are certain risks involved in this, like execution risk, bureaucratic delays, geopolitical balancing, and dependency risk, and opportunities which you can grab: access to the European markets, technological upgrade, defense sector growth, and startup and innovation boost. So what should you do? You should you should make a export strategy. You should target Europe markets via Austria, align with the European quality standards and certifications. You should partner with like Austrian tech brands, joint ventures, and licensing opportunities, and move up the value chain. Don't stay in low cost manufacturing, move to precision manufacturing and high tech components. You should use the policy advantage, track government incentives, bilateral programs, because early movers will benefit the most. So this isn't not just diplomacy, it's positioning for the next industrial growth ecosystem. But while some regions are building partnerships, others are facing immediate crises. Let's see that. So Europe is facing a potential jet fuel crisis with only 6 wheels of supply remaining, according to the International Energy Agency chief Fatih Birol. So it's a warning. If supply chain disruption continue, flight cancellations could begin soon. Airlines have already started cutting flights, adjusting routes. So this crisis is directly linked to the disruptions in the global oil supply chains. So it happened due to the geopolitical conflict, because the ongoing Iran-related conflict, and Europe's heavy dependence on imports, 75% they are importing from external regions like Middle East, and moreover, like supply chain disruptions and logistic shocks, because tankers are unable to move freely, and shipping risk and military tensions are also built in. And moreover, there is a limited refinery capacity in Europe. Even if crude is available, Europe can't quickly refine enough jet fuel domestically. And demand timing crisis is hitting just before the peak summer travel season. So the impact, risk, and opportunities are like the airlines, airports, and fuel suppliers are directly impacted. Travelers, tourism industry, global logistics are indirectly impacted by this. In short term, you will see flight cancellations will become, jet fuel prices will surge, operational disruption and airfares will increase. And in long term, you will see Europe will realize that their over dependence on external fuel is a strategic risk. So they should shift toward diversification and increase in US fuel imports and African suppliers. And there will be more push towards sustainable aviation fuel, and also airline industry restructuring can happen. They may reduce low margin routes and focus on efficiency. There are certain risks like the aviation disruption crisis, energy price shock, economic slowdown, and global spillover can happen. And opportunity like alternative fuel innovation can happen, supply chain diversification, efficiency driven innovation, and strategic reserves importance. So what should you do? You should do logistics risk management. Don't just rely heavily on air freight. Build multi-mode logistics like sea, rail, road, and plan for delays and cost spikes. You should make an inventory strategy. Increase your buffer stock for critical components, especially if imported via air. And you should do the supply diversification. Avoid depending on single geography and build regional supply chains. You should do cost management. Expect higher transportation cost. So this is not just an aviation problem, it is a logistics problem and eventually a manufacturing problem. And at the same time, another supply chain risk is quietly building, which is these sort of industrial tools. If we see that this is where we start seeing how manufacturers are responding to the ground. We will see that the Desutter Industrial Tools has partnered with CSD Automation to showcase their advanced assembly and automation solutions at MACH 2026. This event is held for the NEC Birmingham, April 20 to 24. They are demonstrating integrated assembly tools and automation systems, human-machine collaborations, and robot-assisted assembly setup. It happens due to because they wanted to push toward automation in manufacturing, and industry shifting towards integrated solutions. And moreover, manual assembly causes fatigue, reduces consistency, and new systems reduce the physical strain and improve precisions. So to cater the workforce and economic challenges, this is happening. And they, moreover, the manufacturers want the custom automation scalable systems, and CSD specialize in bespoke automation solutions. So directly the automotive, aerospace, and industrial assembly companies are affected, and directly the factory workers, automation, and SMEs are affected. In short term, you will see that there will be increased awareness of automation solutions and faster adoption decisions, and focus on hybrid systems like the human and machine combination. And in long term, you will see there will be rise of integrated assembly ecosystems and standardization of smart factories, and competitive pressure will increase, and high initial investment, integration complexity, and skill gap. These are the risk involved and opportunities which are forming. You will see that the productivity gains will increase, and worker efficiency and safety and custom automation growth. So what should you do? Don't jump to full automation immediately. Start with assisted automation, like manipulators and smart tools. You should choose solutions that easily connect with existing systems, avoid isolated tools, and identify the high impact use cases and work with system integrators, partner with automation expert instead of building everything in-house. So the shift is clear from isolated tools to the connected systems. And now we will see that at the same time, another supply chain risk is quietly building, which is China is considering restricting export of advanced solar manufacturing equipment to the United States. Discussions are still in early stages with no final policy yet, but this could impact US plans to build domestic solar manufacturing because of major investments like Tesla's 2.9 billion equipment purchases. And it happened due to because they want to prevent technological transfer, and track and trade war acceleration is happening, and they want to protect domestic dominance and industrial policy. This is a moreover industrial policy strategy, and they overcapacity pressure. And directly we'll see that the US solar manufacturers, Chinese equipment suppliers, and companies building solar factories are directly affected. And indirectly, the big tech, global renewable ecosystems, and countries trying to build local supply chains are affected. In short term, you will see in market uncertainty. No final decision yet because policy risk. So policy risk will increase, and there will be mixed reaction in solar sector stocks after the news, and delay in US solar projects. Companies may pause investments and re-evaluate supply chains. And in long run, you will see that supply chain fragmentation, rise of alternative suppliers, and acceleration of tech weaponization. Supply chain disruption, increased cost, and trade war accelerations are the risks involved, and new manufacturing hubs, domestic innovation pools, and supplier diversifications are the opportunities. So what you should do, you should avoid reduce dependency on one country, avoid over reliance on Chinese equipment or components, build multi-country or sourcing strategy. You should monitor export controls and trade policy and invest in local capabilities, and build strategic partnerships. You should collaborate with alternative tech providers and regional ecosystems. And this is the pattern keep repeating across industries, which is why automation is becoming non-negotiable. Now let's move into specific sectors where these changes are becoming very visible. This we have already seen, like the Europe has only 6 weeks of fuel supply remaining. This we have already discussed earlier that it happened due to some geopolitical conflict, and Europe is mainly dependent on imports from one region, like around 75% from the Middle East, and moreover, the crisis hitting just before the peak summer travel season. So, and moreover, there is a limited refining capacity in Europe. Even if crude is available, Europe cannot quickly refine enough jet fuel domestically. And this we have already seen that it's impacting airlines, fuel suppliers, and indirectly the travelers, manufacturers, and global logistics. Immediately, you will see flight cancellations, airfares will increase, and operational disruptions. In long term, Europe will realize that there should plan strategically and should avoid over dependence on one region. And you will see there will be fuel alternatives will be developed, sustainable aviation fuels like things. And these are the risk and opportunities which you can see yourself. And what should the manufacturer should do? They shouldn't rely on only on just air freight. They should expand to multimodal logistics, sea, rail, and road. And they should do supply diversification. Don't just depend on single geography. Build multi-regional support, and they should do cost management. Now let's start with defense because this sector is hitting up very fast. A $1 billion investment just went into a missile manufacturing capacity. L3 Helis Technologies is investing $1.27 billion to expand its solid rocket motor manufacturing capacity in the US. This expansion will build new production facilities and increase output of propulsion systems. And these systems will support multiple US Department of Defense like Pentagon programs, including the missile systems. It happened due to the rising global military demand and supply chains shortages in defense manufacturing. This is a new Pentagon strategy, like direct to supplier investment model in which the government invests directly in manufacturers, not just contracts, but equity plus funding. And moreover, there is a need for industrial base resilience. US want domestic manufacturing strength, reduce dependency on limited suppliers. Now, the impact of this directly the L3 Harris Technologies, US Department of Defense and missile system programs are affected, and indirectly other defense contractors and suppliers of material components and allied countries are dependent. In short terms, you will see that there will be surge in production capacity, boost to the defense sector, and strong government industry alignment. In long run, you will see new defense industrial model will be developed. Massive increase in weapons production capacity and industry restructuring can happen and strengthen domestic supply chains. Risk involved are over dependence on government funding and industry concentration and execution risk, and opportunities will be massive defense manufacturing growth, supplier ecosystem expansion, new industrial policy model, and high margin contracts. So what should you do? You should enter defense supply chain. It is a very big opportunity. You should identify components you can supply, and defense ecosystem is expanding rapidly. You should align with government programs, track the defense tenders and industrial policies, and build high precision capabilities, because this defense requires quality, reliability, and certification. You should focus on long-term contracts. Like defense industry offers predictable demand, multi-year contracts. So the governments are no longer just buyers, they are becoming investors in manufacturing, and that creates a massive ripple effect across industries. Now, here is something interesting, almost unexpected. Sedans, the segment many automakers abandoned, are starting to come back. The global auto industry is reconsidering sedans, a segment many automakers had previously abandoned. Major US automakers like the Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis have shifted heavily towards SUV trucks. Now, due to rising vehicle prices and affordability issues, they are exploring bringing back smaller, cheaper vehicles, especially the sedans. It happened due to the affordability crisis, because average new car price is above $50,000 plus, and over focus on FUVs and trucks, and there will be low customer pipeline. Sedans used to be the gateway products, bring your buyers into brands. Without them, customers don't enter brand ecosystem, and moreover, competition from Asian automakers like Toyota, Hyundai. They are selling auto affordable sedans and can gain market share. So impact directly the automakers and the sedan focused brands are affected. Indirectly, consumers, dealers, EV manufacturers, suppliers, and manufacturing parts manufacturing. In short term, you will see strategic rethinking inside automakers, product pipeline changes, and increased competition in early segment and shift in manufacturing planning. In long term, you will see there will be return of balanced portfolios, sedans as EV enablers, and market segmentation will evolve, and competitive landscape will be reshaped. Low profitability, cost pressure, and demand uncertainty are the risk involved. And in opportunities are like this is a huge untapped demand. So anyone who want to grab it can grab it. And EV advantage, sedans are more efficient, better EV adoption, and US automakers are reclaiming the lost ground. What you should do, you should reevaluate the product strategy. Don't focus only on high margin products, include entry level offerings, and rethink the lifetime value and not just the margins. Because use lower cost products to acquire customers and retain long term. You should make sedans visible, lean manufacturing and global sourcing, and study the Toyota Hyundai strategies and focus on scale and efficiency. So this isn't just about cars, it's about understanding demand correctly, and when companies get that wrong, the consequence can be serious. And the next story is warning, especially for manufacturers trying to cut costs. A factory owner was jailed for illegal waste disposal. A US based mustard manufacturing company secretly dumped industrial wastewater into river for years, and the owner built an underground pipe system to bypass environmental monitoring. He lied to authorities, forced the employees to stay silent, and the result what result it lead to owner sentenced to 18 months in prison, fines, company fined $1.5 million. It happened because of the cost cutting motive, because proper waste disposal is expensive, so they started illegal dumping, which is very cheap. And moreover, weak enforcement over decades. Violation reportedly ongoing since 1980s, and authorities tried warnings, monitoring, but no one stopped. Moreover, environmental compliance complexity regulations can be strict and costly. So directly the company, the oldest mustard company owner and the employees are involved in operation directly impacted, and indirectly the local communities, environment, and broader food manufacturing sector because of reputation impact are impacted. In short term, you will see legal consequences, business disruptions, and reputation damage. In long term, stricter environment enforcement, industry-wide caution signal, and the ESG, the environmental, social government's importance will grow. So risks involved are legal and criminal liability, massive financial penalties, brand disruptions, and long-term environmental damage. And opportunities will be compliance tech adoption, competitive advantage for ethical companies, and ESG-driven growth. So what you should do, don't treat compliance as non-negotiable. Don't cut corners on environmental rules. Assume violations will eventually be discovered. Invest in waste management systems, proper treatment plants, monitoring infrastructure, build the transparent reporting, maintain accurate data and audit trails. You should protect employees, never press the staff into illegal actions, build ethical culture. So compliance is just not just a cost center. It is a risk management system. Now let's move to the final layer where all of this connects, and that is supply chain. But before that, we should see certain demand trends. This we have already, like, first is tariffs. If we see Mentesa experts fell like 13% on year, dropping to about 23.5 billion. And this decline represents a loss of roughly 3.5 billion value in trade value. The fall was driven by reduced exports of vehicles, machinery, and industrial goods, a sharp drop in fuel and oil exports. Despite overall US exports growing, Minnesota was among the states that saw a clear contraction in trade activity. It happened due to tariffs created cost pressures, and trade policy uncertainties is a big driver of this, because frequent changes in tariffs, trade rules created a unpredictable planning environment and hesitation in international conflicts. And there is a weak demand from the key markets, like exports declined to Canada, largest trading partner, and Mexico and China. And moreover, sector specific slowdown. Heavy hit industries, machinery, vehicles, and industrial equipments are heavily hit. So directly the Minnesota manufacturers, export oriented industrial firms, logistics, and trade companies are directly affected, and directly the workers in the manufacturing plants, suppliers, and component makers, and local economy are affected. In short term, you will see a revenue decline for manufacturers, market instability, and there will be a shift in trade flows. And in long run, you will see structural trade realignment, supply chain restructuring, and manufacturing slowdown risk. And there will be reduced export dependency risk. Export competitiveness will decline in margin pressure, and long-term market loss will be the risk involved. And opportunities, you will see there will be diversification push and domestic manufacturing revival and new trade partnership. So you should diversify your export markets immediately. Don't rely heavily on one region, especially the tariff heavy markets. And you should build tariff resilient forwardly pricing models, factor in like policy volatility, extra cost buffers. You should strengthen the supply chain flexibility, like the multi-country sourcing, flexibility logistic routes, and improve trade intelligence systems. Track the policy changes, tariff updates, and market demand shifts. Now let's move on to the supply chain. Let's start with something very practical, inventory. Hershey is cutting about $100 million worth of inventory using AI, because they are using advanced supply chain technology and AI decision systems, so they can reduce inventory levels by around $100 million. And the company is deploying decision intelligence systems, AI-driven planning, real-time supply chain visibility tools, and integrated forecasting systems. It happened due to the high inventory cost because the working capital pressure was very high. So they introduced AI. And demand volatility in food industry. Chocolate demand is affected by the seasonal spikes, commodity price swings, and supply chain uncertainty, ongoing disruptions like the logistics, geopolitics, inflation. And moreover, there is a technological maturity, which is a very, very big shift. Hershey now uses AI-driven demand forecasting, automated replenishment systems, and integrated ERP and plan analytics layer. So directly the Hershey manufacturing operations, suppliers, and retail disruptions partners are affected, and indirectly the retailers, supply chain tech vendors, and competitors are affected. In short term, you will see that the lower inventory levels, better demand alignment, and reduced waste risk. In long run, you will see that the AI-driven supply chain becomes standard and inventory becomes dynamic. Industry-wide adoption will increase, and shift from a efficiency to intelligence is there. And implementation complexity, system dependence risk, workforce transition issues, cyber data risks are the risk involved in it. And opportunities which you will see that the massive efficiency gains, competitive advantage, waste reduction, and scalable role. So what you should do, you should move towards AI-driven planning ecosystems. Implement the demand forecasting tool, inventory optimization systems, and you should reduce excess inventory exposures. You should improve demand visibility, integrate the sales data, retail signals, supplier inputs, and you should invest heavily in the supply chain tech stacks, ERP, AI, and analytics integration. So the inventory is no longer just storage. It's becoming a strategic lever, and cost pressure is making this even more important. Now here is something most manufacturers don't anticipate properly: delayed cost shocks. WD-40, the industrial lubricant company, is preparing for a rising raw material cost due to the Iran war-driven oil shock. Because the company uses the petroleum-based specialty chemicals, so it is directly exposed to the oil price fluctuations. And so management started to input cost increase. Management stated that the input cost increase will take 90 to 120 days to fully reflect in profits due to the inventory cycles. And the company does not expect immediate margin impact, but expected pressures later in financial year 2026. Firstly, this happened due to the Iran war, and WD-40 depends on petroleum-based inputs, and there is a time lag in supply chain pricing and broad inflation across manufacturing sectors. Directly, the WD-40 company, mechanical suppliers, industrial lubricants are affected. Indirectly, the automotive, retail, and global CPGs companies are impacted. In short run, you will see no immediate margin collapse, rising input cost signals, and supply chain uncertainty will increase. In long run, profit margin pressure across FMGC and chemicals, more aggressive supply chain hedging and pricing strategy will be shifted. Oil-driven inflation cycle, demand weakness, risk, supply chain predictability are the risk involved, and supply chain optimization, pricing power advantage, procurement transformation are the opportunities involved. So what you should do, you should prepare for the delayed cost shocks. Understand today's oil price is directly equal to the future cost impact in 90 to 120 days. And future input cost visibility. Track your commodity cycles and raw material indexes. You should strengthen the policy agility, build systems to adjust prices faster and protect margins, and diversify suppliers and materials, reduce dependency on the petroleum linked inputs. So what you see today in raw materials will hit your margins month later. And the companies that don't plan for this get caught off guard. So what's interesting is most companies don't lose money because of big mistakes. They lose it quietly through inefficiencies like this. Once you start seeing it, you can't unsee it. If you want a clear view of where this might be happening in your business, I have left link in the description below. Now, this is where supply chains are evolving rapidly. Companies are no longer choosing shipping based on pricing alone. Imcertile is partnering with Blue Spark to transform how it negotiates ocean freight contracts. Instead of focusing only on price, companies now using multi-dimensional data analysis for decisions. This includes tracking carrier performance, transit times, port efficiency, vessel routing, total landed cost. It happened because there is a extreme supply chain volatility. And traditional contracts models are outdated. Earlier, there is the annual fixed rate contracts. But there is a problem like ignored real world performance differences between carriers. There is a need for cost and speed optimization, and versatile is inventory intensive. There is a shift towards landed cost thinking and better data availability. Modern logistics tools now allow real-time tracking, carrier benchmarking, which is a multi-variable analysis. So directly the versatile ocean freight carriers, freight forwarders are impacted, and directly the global suppliers and port operators and other import heavy manufacturers are impacted. In short run, you will see smart contract negotiations, better sourcing decisions, and strong collaboration with carriers. In long run, you will see data becomes the core of supply chain negotiations, carrier selection becomes algorithmic, and shift in global sourcing mix and stronger digital freight ecosystems. So there are certain risks involved like over dependence on data systems, complexity overload, and carrier resistance, and opportunities forming are major cost optimization, competitive advantage through speed and supply chain transparency, and smarter sourcing strategy. So what you should do? You should move from cost-based to database procurement. Don't just negotiate price, negotiate reliability, performance, speed, and performance metrics, and build multi-dimensional supply chain dashboards. Treat logistics as a strategic function, not just shipping, but competitive advantage driver. Collaborate with carriers instead of fighting them. Use data to improve joint performance, not reduce cost. So logistics is no longer just execution. It's becoming a competitive advantage. And finally, there is one more shift happening, this time around people and compliance. Nestle is now working with global institutions to improve labor conditions in its supply chain, and these signals are much bigger shift. Nestle has entered 2-year partnership with the International Labour Organization to improve the labor rights and fair recruitment practices in coffee supply chains. The initiative focuses on 3 major coffee sourcing countries: Brazil, Colombia, Mexico. Then the program aims to improve working conditions, strengthen fair recruitment systems, and reduce the labor right violations in coffee farming systems, and it is linked to Nestle broader Nescafe Plan 2030 sustainability program. It happened because there was a labor risk in coffee supply chain and reputational pressure on global brands. Supply chain stability requirement was there, and regulatory inventory pressure was always there. And partnership model with global institutions ILO act as a neutral facilitator standards body. Directly, the coffee farmers, Nestle sourcing operations, and labor agencies and recruiters are affected, and indirectly, the coffee brands, ESG investors, and consumers are affected. In short term, you will see there will be launch of structure field interventions, increased monitoring in supply chains, and industrial signaling effect, and improved transparency expectations. In long run, you will see that the labor rights become a core supply chain requirement, and rise of social compliance infrastructure and more institutional partnerships. There is a supply chain disruption risk, smaller farmer pressure, and greenwashing, social washing criticism. These are the risks involved. And more stable supply chains, brand trust will increase, premium market access, long-term productivity improvement are the opportunities. So treat labor rights as a supply chain infrastructure, not CSR, but core operational risk management. Build supplier compliance system, track your recruitment practices, labor conditions, workforce documentation, and strengthen the traceability. Know who works, where they work, under what conditions. So work with the institutional partners, collaborate with NGOs, governments, and certification bodies. And there is a strategic mindset shift, which is very, very needed and very, very important. Move from a lower cost sourcing to a sustainable, compliant, and stable sourcing. So the supply chains are no longer just about cost. They are about resilience, transparency, and trust. And when you put everything together, so if you are into manufacturing and you are serious about improving how businesses run, not just consuming information, but actually fixing things, there is always a way deeper on this. Check the link in the description. If you look at all of this, there is a clear pattern. Manufacturing is becoming more complex, more competitive, and less forgiving. The companies that adapt early will have an unfair advantage. So thank you. That's it for this week. And thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.